And just so everybody knows, the policewoman was cognizant that she was being recorded and had no problem with it.
Well, she's very kind, by the way. I've interacted with her a number of times. She took some Fuck My Seaquarium stickers home. She's great. She's always very courteous. We always have a great exchange. I have nothing but respect for law enforcement. We're always abiding by the law entirely, or until they ask us not to. But we're not engaging in anything stupid ever.
Well,
this is Phil Demers, the Walrus Whisperer. For those of you who don't know him, I think the first time he was on the channel, it was pre-COVID. Was it pre-COVID? I don't remember anything anymore. Phil Demers is awesome, but bad news this weekend. But we'll play this, and you'll see what the Miami Seaquarium looked like when I was there. As my grandmother said, twice, the first and last time.
we're gonna see if I can.
Good luck getting in. I wonder. So
we'll find out.
We're gonna actually go into the Seaquarium. This was not part of the plan for the day because I actually don't like sad, depressing zoos with higher order animals that are not happy in captivity.
This is one of them. It's still open. Wait until you see the manatee enclosure.
But Phil Demers said do it and see just how bad it is. I have forewarned my kid that this is not going to be an inspiring aquarium for the higher order animals. Sure, they have nice fish, but walruses, whales, etc., not always a happy place, although I see flamingos.
Oh, we're live everywhere, right?
We made it in after what I thought might have been a brief incident, but they just asked me to put my drone bag in the car because
I went with a drone. I wasn't going to fly it because I don't break the law. Maybe, I don't know if you can break the rules without breaking the law. Yeah, they asked me to put my drone away. Understandably so.
The drone, have no intention of flying it, but I can understand their concern. It's actually very, very quiet here.
Okay, I want to skip a little bit ahead here. Oh, no, look at this, look at this. So you walk into the Miami Seaquarium. There's a dolphin playing with a ball. Depressing. A vapid, not vapid.
see the dolphin?
What's the word I'm looking for? Arid, an arid enclosure.
Oh, he has a ball. He plays with the ball, Papa. Look how cute.
Like a prisoner
Let's go upstairs.
bouncing a ball off a wall.
Here they have a purple lobster, you know, some standard displays with animals that
Some people might not think are equally higher order to dolphins that are put in a big
Okay, let's get to the
fish
manatee.
tank
Get
and
to the
given
manatee.
a soccer ball to play with.
This is the manatee right here. Look at this. Look at this. The music is enough to make you go crazy.
that's barely 3 body lengths. There's another one right here.
This is its life. This is a smart animal.
This doesn't make sense.
Just sitting there like a big matzo
In
ball.
order to monitor naive and high-risk manatees, a buoy tracking device is fitted before release. The information transmitted allows biologists to follow the migration and dive patterns of individual animals for up to several months after their reintroduction.
I'm gonna go to wide angle just so you can get a feel for the actual full size of this tank.
They've been in there for decades. I think the big one, 60 years. Look at this. Look at this.
This is their tank.
Anyhow, that's it.
How old are these guys?
So the one underneath, he's about 20 years old.
20 years old.
The one up on top is about 65.
65 years old.
65 years old.
Yeah.
How long have they been here for?
She's been here since 1958. 1958.
1958.
Yeah.
That's it. That manatee, the big one, the one that's 65 years old, has been there in that soup. I don't think they move all that. I don't think they can transport them to, like, have a day at the ocean. Since 1958. 58, 68, 78, 88, 98, 08, 18, 65 years. Sad it's beyond sad. So this is a prelude to the story of the weekend. Phil Demers, the Walrus Whisperer. he was on the show. I did an interview with him, and I remember where I was, my mother-in-law's place in Quebec, about his decade-long litigation, lawfare with Marineland Canada, because he blew the whistle on the treatment of Smushy the Walrus. And then he got embroiled in 10 years of litigation, dragged into litigation by Marineland, which he, I guess, was victorious in as much as anybody can be victorious after a decade and $250,000 in legal fees. He negotiated the relocation of Smushy the Walrus and her calf that they had in captivity to Abu Dhabi. After Marineland dropped its lawsuit against Phil Demers, Phil Demers had a counterclaim for his legal fees, which he surrendered, abandoned, relinquished in exchange for the settlement, consisting of moving Smushy to an appropriate location, which they did, Abu Dhabi. After Phil Demers was done with Marineland, he turned his sights to Miami Seaquarium. And it was a little known fact that there was an orca, a flipping whale, in the Miami Seaquarium. Had been there for decades as well. Lolita was the original name, but I think it became unpopular because Epstein, or maybe it was the movie, Lolita, whatever, Lolita Express and Ephraim. So they changed the name to Tookie, or at least they went by a secondary name, Tookie. Phil Demers, after he was done with Marineland, turned his sights on Miami Seaquarium, trying to organize pressure, facilitate the release of Lolita into the wild. She had been there for decades. And then he organized protests there every now and again. That was a protest from a few months ago that he invited me to document, and I did. Anyhow, Lolita never made it out and passed away over the weekend. And, I guess made it back. Misery ended. But she passed away over the weekend, and Phil Demers put this photograph on the internet with an appropriate commentary. Let me just see where my screen is here. My screen is there. Minimize. And here we go. This is the image. I don't know how an orca dies. I mean, I don't know how something dies. I don't know if they did that. And look at the birds that happen to be flying overhead in a V formation. Let this haunting image of Lolita's body being removed from her torturous prison cell of a tank be the Miami Seaquarium's lasting legacy. Torture, lies, and death. We must make them pay for their egregious abuse. F the Miami Seaquarium. And Phil had been pretty vocal about this for a long time, was trying to, not just Lolita was in captivity in the Miami Seaquarium, but she was in a stadium or an area, I think it's a stadium, that was not open to the public because it was a building to be condemned. And she was there, not available to the public, not that that would make the torture any less torturous, and passed away. Couldn't find a way to get her, release her into the wild, find a better enclosure. So she passed away over the weekend, and Phil Demers is pissed, rightfully so. Phil Demers is also being sued by the Miami Seaquarium because the last time I covered this, I might have misdescribed what happened. He posted a drone video on his Instagram of the Miami Seaquarium of Lolita just, doing circles in her fishbowl soup. And that drone footage was not his drone footage, but apparently Miami Seaquarium, or whoever owns it, whatever entity owns it, sued Phil Demers for an injunction, declaratory judgment, and some damages, I don't know, nominal damages, for having, I think they think he took the drone footage, but whatever, they'll find out in discovery. But for having posted it, they want him banned. He's already banned anyhow. But they don't want him talking about what was going on there. But I guess, it came to its natural ending. And what I discovered over the weekend is that I don't know when it happened, but I've been blocked by Miami Seaquarium. I can imagine when it happened. Didn't notice it until the weekend when I tried to see why I couldn't tag them properly. I think you can't tag when you're blocked, or it doesn't auto-populate. Anyway, I forget how I discovered it, but I've been blocked by Miami Seaquarium, so I'm going to adopt the... who was it that said it? Judge me by the enemies I have made. All right, everybody. Good morning. I said I was going to go live at 11, a little earlier, so that we can cover some stories, talk about some stuff, and I will no longer be live by the time Robert Barnes goes live at 1 o'clock with the Duran. I'm going to have Jessica Rose on for a second time. Jessica Rose is the scientist, PhD. I had her on talking about COVID, and I got the standard graffiti from YouTube for putting COVID in the header of this, because we're going to talk about a COVID story as we get into all of the crap of the day. Jessica Rose testified at the National Citizens Inquiry. She's an expert, much of an expert as in statistical analysis as one can get, because she was raising the flag on some chicanery as relates to COVID. If you haven't seen that interview, I'm going to actually just post it again. It was a good one. She has a connection to Hawaii, and I don't know what it is exactly, but on good intelligence that she has some good insights as to what's going on in Maui. So she's going to come on and talk about it. But before we even get there, everybody, good morning. Standard disclaimers: no medical advice, no legal advice, no election fortification advice. Let's see if we have not been demonetized already on YouTube. There are some political entities that are very powerful, and when you criticize them, magically things happen where you get demonetized on the YouTubes. You post a video, you post a certain video of a certain Justin Trudeau's stormtroopers applying their knees to the torsos of army veterans during the Ottawa protests. Auto demonetized. You don't see anything except for what the government did to its citizens. Automatically demonetized. So that's it. We're still green. The stories of the day, people. We're going to talk about Hawaii. Nick Sortor. You know what? No, I'll bring that up when we talk about it. Nick Sortor is on location, running into some government obstruction in terms of his ability to cover what's going on. The independent foot soldier journalists running into, what's the word I'm looking for? Friction from government officials. And he had a very peculiar incident this morning live when he was doing some reporting for the Steve Bannon War Room show. Alexa Lavoie, I think they left yesterday, or they might be leaving today. The stuff that's going on in Hawaii is nuts. But the stuff that's going on in the rest of the world is equally nuts, people. What do we start with? Let me see what I got in the backdrop here. Do we want to start? No, we're gonna. All of the stuff with Hawaii is going to fit very well together. Let's start with Canada. Let's start with Canada and just some headlines that have been, if for anybody who's been paying attention, you might have noticed these headlines. Let's zoom in. I made the montage for those of you who don't have the stomach, the time, or the patience to do this yourself. Let's just go through some of the headlines making their rounds in Canada. Let's see here. That looks like ctvnews.ca from Nushin Ziafata. And what's the date? August 7th. The war was not meant to be won. It was meant to be continuous or continual or permanent, perpetual, whatever. George Orwell said it. He's smart. A new COVID-19 variant has emerged. Here's what we need to know about EG.5 so far. I want Jimmy Fallon. I mean, I could just hear it in my head. EG.5. Like, if anybody hasn't heard that, Jimmy Fallon singing, when it's not, what's the other guy's name? Stephen Colbert. Dancing with syringes. It's Jimmy Fallon dancing and singing. That variant CPT.5. Anyhow, here's what we need to know about EG.5. So far, CTV News. Global news. Surge of new COVID-19 cases in Canada due to a rapidly rising... this is right. Surge of new COVID-19 cases in Canada due to EG.5 subvariant. Posted August 17, 2023. Who's this one from? Global News. Another one from Global. Canada monitoring new COVID variant BA.2.86 found in at least 4. Which one are we on? Are we on EG.5 or are we on BA.2.86 found in at least 4 countries? August 18. Be afraid, people. Stay home. Stay safe. Keep your distance. We're closer together by keeping our distance. War is peace. Ignorance is strength. Freedom is slavery, people. COVID-19 activity in Canada showing early signs that it may be increasing. Shit. They got to start running the death count in the Chirons. They stopped doing that, eh? They got to do COVID cases in the. Why did they stop doing that? Shouldn't we just have that for the rest? Shouldn't we just have the COVID death count, case count channel, like the Aquarium channel, just with continuous, forever death count, COVID count, hospitalizations, ER beds. Like, when you go into a parking lot and they say parking spaces left here are A1 and B5. Let's just have that a channel. Call it the Terror Channel. Which one was this from? This was from the Canadian Press, by the way. They're the independent journalists. They just get syndicated. This one's CTV News. Wiring, the Canadian Press. COVID-19 activity in Canada showing early signs that it may be increasing. Oh, I think we saw that before. CBC News, new COVID-19 subvariant EG.5 confirmed in New Brunswick. Be afraid, people. Number of cases of Omicron offshoot declared a variant of interest by the World Health Organization. Not released. And then we got some videos that come up in Google. What was my insight with this? Let me refresh my memory as to what I said when I saw this. That's my problem here. Shrink. There we go. Shrink again. Close the picture. Yes, get ready, Canada. The war is not meant to be won. It's meant to be continuous. Sure is a good thing. Canadians' access to news is now severely limited due to government policy. Don't worry, the government will tell you what to believe. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I got into a little tiff with, Journo Dale Smith probably doesn't even know I exist, but doesn't prevent me from screaming into the wind and shaking my fist at clouds. Journo Dale, in defending the government's action that is leading to Canadians having their news sources wildly restricted. Let's bring it up here. Every time I tweet now, I hear Tyler Durden, and I used to be so nice. Dale Smith at Journo_Dale, because he's a journalist. Trudeau, yes, I was a high school. Oh no, hold on, that's me showing that he's a sycophant, a bootlicker. I mean, it's like we're playing like rabbit hole chain stuff on Twitter. Dale Smith at Journo Dale tweets, Pierre Poilievre refers to Bill C-18 as a government censorship bill and has mendaciously framed it so that Meta's tantrum and removing news links is, quote, government censorship, end quote. Some people obviously believed him. Understand, Journo Dale, what he's saying right here. We have to back it up, and I can't presume knowledge of everybody. Let me just take this out for the time while I say this. Bill C-18 is Canada's, quote, link tax. It was the government's attempt to coerce search engines, Google, social media platforms, Facebook, to pay a fee to be negotiated with news links, news outlets, news providers, to pay them a fee just for linking through to their link, if it's posted on their platform, to the original source. Appreciate what they're saying. You have to pay a fee to be negotiated with these news outlets for linking to their original source. Imagine the idea would be that the government's going to build roads that allow people to travel to your business. And you, let me think, is this analogy going to work? Skip the analogy. It's not going to work. We don't need, and I'm Viva, you idiot. Abide by your own rules. You don't need an imperfect analogy when you have a perfect example. Google and Meta were going to facilitate increased traffic and discoverability to these news outlets, allow people to find it, share it, link right through to the original source, so the original source could get the ad revenue, could get the traffic, could sell ad space on their platform. And then they expected Google and Meta to pay the news outlet for the privilege, for the courtesy of directing traffic to their original source. Meta and Facebook rightly say, fuck you. I'm thinking of the guy from Kill Bill, like, yeah, screw them with their money. Oh, I'm sorry, government of Canada. You think I'm going to pay money to do something that I don't have to do that increases traffic to the recipient of this? Go to hell. Oh, you don't have to go to hell. We're just not going to link through anymore. Oh, and then Journo Dale comes out and says Meta is throwing a tantrum for not paying money to outlets for the privilege of directing people's traffic over to them. Do you know what this is? It's such a privileged, pompous, entitled attitude of a child. You know, they're throwing a tantrum because they're not being asked, because they are not willing to pay indefinite sums of money for the privilege of directing more traffic to the recipients of the traffic. You call that throwing a tantrum. I call that not being a piggy bank for the government. And then to say, oh, well, it's Meta and Google that are doing the censoring, not the government. Therefore, it's not the government's fault. The government was warned this was going to happen. They knew that there was one of two outcomes to this policy, Bill C-18, the link tax. Either the companies pay the tax, and who's the recipient and the beneficiary of that link tax? CBC News, Global News, National Post, Toronto Star, pretty much whatever big one is going to get the links, the shares in social media. They'd be the beneficiary. So, oh, look at that. The government propagandists are the recipients of monies that they didn't earn, that they're not entitled to because of government policy. What's the other outcome? Meta and Google say, piss off, we're not paying it, and we're just not going to link through anymore. We're going to block the links. You can't share them on social media. You won't find them in Google. And go and enjoy your hermit kingdom, Canadians. But Jordan O'Dale thinks not only it's a tantrum, it's a privilege to do business in Canada. You should just pay money everywhere. Like the mob comes in and says, hey, we want some of that. So I reply to Jordan O'Dale with my theory, which starts off with, it's not just that he's useless. He's not useless. He's quite useful. He's useful for the regime, and he's destructive for Canadians. The Bill C-18, I've said it, from the time I sufficiently understood it, it was censorship. But it was worse than censorship because it either succeeds in censoring the news that you get, and the outcome to that is people just go to the name recognition that they know. They're going to go Google and look up CBC and look up the CTV News. They'll look up the legacy names. They're not going to look up the Post-Millennial. They're not going to look up True North. They're not going to look up Rebel News unless they know it exists already. It wasn't just censorship. It was a secondary way of trying to subsidize the media that the government can no longer directly subsidize transparently. I'll skip it here. Government already subsidizes CBC News, Radio-Canada, $1.2 billion a year. Direct subsidy, direct funding. Then you get your indirect government advertising. Then you get your bailouts for print media, $600 million. Then you get for your digital media, your indirect subsidies of COVID advertising, government advertising. And it's good money. It's good money for flailing outlets that need every penny they can get from a corrupt government. So it wasn't just censorship. It was an indirect way to try and subsidize failing Canadian media by getting and compelling Google and Meta to pay them a link tax for the privilege of linking to the original source. And now that Meta and Google say, piss off, we're not doing it, what ends up happening? Canadians can't find their news anymore. But don't worry, the government's going to tell you what to do. And you should be very worried about EG5. You should be very worried about whatever the hell that other one was. You should be very worried about your life. You should be worried about disease. You should go jack yourself up with what are people on if they're getting boosters every 3 months? Go jack yourself up with another booster. Be very worried because we told you in August another variant of concern was up, and now look at this. Case numbers are up. So we're going to lock your asses down again. Don't take my word for it. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, where is it? It was Alex Jones who here we go. Now, I know what people think, and you have to take...
Intel, they're getting ready for one. We have the whistleblowers. We can stop them.
Stop. Okay. Alex Jones reported this. When was this? It's a few days ago now. Here's what Alex Jones reported. You can take it with a grain of salt for those of you who don't like Alex Jones. You can take it with a grain of salt for those of you who say Alex Jones was wrong on a few big things in the past. Therefore, he's totally discredited. Set aside the things on which he has been way ahead of the curve. For all of those out there who want to write off Alex Jones as a news outlet because they've gotten things wrong, but then go and rely on CBC, CNN, MSNBC, that's your prerogative. Couple what Alex Jones is reporting now with what's coming out of Canada from all of the outlets in tandem. But it's not an orchestrated campaign. It's called a wire. coming from Canadian press that's being repeated and regurgitated by all the others. This is what Alex Jones is reporting last week.
Are you going to lay down the next lockdown? We have the intel. They're getting ready for one. We have the whistleblowers. We can stop them. The article's on Infowars.com exclusive. Biden and preparing to bring back full COVID restrictions rollout to begin mid-September unless we stop them. Just get it out to everybody. Exclusive. Biden administration preparing to bring back full COVID restrictions rollout to begin mid-September. They may change the plan. They may speed it up. They may back it off. They might cancel it. That's what I want. But this on my children is from federal whistleblowers. And they're going to do it. They were told it's going to happen. And here's how we're going to roll it out to the public. There's nothing more I want than to have Media Matters and Snopes.
Well, this was not the original video that I was looking for, but it's good enough.
In October, take clips of this and edit it and say, look, Jones claimed lockdowns are coming. Jones claimed more masks are coming. Jones claimed, new vaccine for the new variant's coming. It didn't happen. Look, he's a liar. I will literally buy champagne. I don't ever buy expensive champagne. I'm not even a champagne drinker. I'll buy a $500 bottle of Dom Perignon on air and toast all of you if we're here in October and we back this off. I'll dance a little dance if we can stop this. And look at the children after years of being tortured, celebrating. And these monsters are going to make another run at us all.
Well, that wasn't the video, but the video was Alex Jones on his own intelligence, or I say not his own sources. A whistleblower coming out and saying they're getting ready to do it again. And it's interesting when you see it and you see it playing out in real time. When he was on the show and he said, it's a funny thing. It's the same playbook over and over again. And they try the same move over and over again. And there's a part of me that is refusing to get black-pilled, or doom-pilled, I should say. The idea that they would come back and say there's a new variant of concern here. Like it's COVID has now become the boogeyman term for any virus forever. Like 2018, how many people died from the flu in America in 2018? 2018 flu deaths. Look at this. This is assuming you can even trust it, but let's see here. Flu deaths. Number of influenza deaths in the United States, 2010. These numbers, 2017 to 2018 was 52,000 deaths. Why did I recall seeing it at 68,000 deaths for, I don't know if it was 2017, 2018, or 20... 50,000 flu deaths. It wasn't the boogeyman term that they could use to terrorize you into staying home, taking does the NIH, what is it called? NIH, do they still call it an experimental vaccine? An experimental shot? I gotta tell you, I remember there being much more than this. Hold on. The COVID is just going to be an endless boogeyman for terrorizing citizens for the rest of our generation. Because the new generation, who knows? Maybe they're going to think like COVID is going to be the new death sentence. But I say flu deaths. Hold on a second. Flu deaths, 80,000, 2018. Yeah. This is very interesting. Are we looking at the same window? We're not, because I don't have it up here. Flu deaths, 2018. Stat News. CDC, 80,000 people died of the flu. 80,000 people died of flu last winter in U.S. Highest death toll in 40 years. I'm sorry. This is from a website. Well, maybe it's a bad website, but did we not just look right here and they said 2018 was 52,000 deaths, and now it says 80,000, which is what I remember the number being. Let's just read this in real time, people. This is from Vials of Flu Vaccine, Matt Rourke, Associated Press. New York, an estimated 80,000 Americans died of flu and its complications last winter, the disease's highest death toll in at least 4 decades. Why does this not reflect on the website? Did they recalculate numbers? The director of the CDC Prevention, Dr. Robert Redfield, revealed the total in an interview Tuesday night with the Associated Press. Flu experts knew it was a very bad season. Well, you want to know how they knew it was a bad season? 80,000. You want to know how? Look at this. 2018, Toronto cancels elective surgeries flu. You want to know how they knew it was a bad? Stay signed out. This is how they knew. Gosh, darn it, is this annoying. This article is more than 5 years old. Thank you very much. More elective surgeries are being postponed at 2 Greater Toronto area hospitals as severe flu cases continue to overwhelm emergency departments and ICUs. It's amazing, eh? The infrastructure was shit before COVID, and they invoked how shitty the infrastructure was during COVID to strip us all. I'm not just going to say of our fundamental rights. I'm going to say of our dignity as humans. I'm a human being, goddammit. My life has value. Oh, so that's it. So apparently the theory is there's going to be more lockdowns. And if it's not going to be COVID lockdowns, people, it might be climate lockdowns, because that certainly seems to be where the panic, the pandemonium, the terror is being pushed right now. Oh. And don't take my word for it, people. Oh my goodness. Like, once you see what they did with COVID, once you see that they applied it mutatis mutandis to Ukraine, once you see how they're applying it mutatis mutandis to climate crisis, once you see how they applied it to things like Iraq, I mean, it all makes sense in retrospect, and it allows you to make sense of it going forward. Who is David Pumpkin Socialist Mosscrop? I don't know who this person is. Right. Oh, okay. Anyway, here we go. Globe and Mail, Washington Compost, Jacobin, TVO. I don't know what these things are. Author, Too Dumb for Democracy? No comment. Podcasts, Open to Debate, and Left Looking In. Substacker. Fine. David Pumpkin Socialist Mosscrop says, Canada isn't broken. We just need mass wartime. I swear to you, I read this and thought it was a joke. And I read it, thought it was a joke, and then checked out the profile. Canada isn't broken, people. Canada, which represents 1.5% of global emissions, even if you think global emissions are the be-all and end-all of what is causing forest fires that are arguably, some of which are the result of arson, climate crisis fires in Maui that are the result of, if it's not arson, it's corruption up the wazoo. Canada isn't broken, David Pumpkin Socialist Mosscrop writes. We just need mass wartime style efforts. Sounds like what we did with COVID, using wartime measures like curfews to combat a virus. But doesn't matter. Forget what happened. Forget how wrong the government has been for the last 3 years. Now they got it. We just need mass wartime-style efforts to address climate change, housing, and healthcare, while taming rising toxic polarization, high consumer debt, stagnant wages, and a drug poisoning crisis, weak industrial output, growing hate crimes, and unaffordability. David Pumpkin Socialist Mosscrop. You should change your name to David Word Salad Verbal Diarrhea. Wartime effort. Oh, that's what we need. Do people know these stats? China emits 27% of global carbon dioxide and a third of the world's greenhouse gases. Oh yeah, no. It's because we didn't pay enough taxes in Canada. We didn't pay enough. What do they call it? Carbon tax in Canada. That's why. That's why what's happening in Canada is happening. And by the way, again, don't take my word for it. I'm going to bring something up. It's going to be amazing. Right after I just make sure that Jessica Rose, the guest of the day, ready when you are, is coming in. Don't take my word for it, people. This is when you see how they did it in the past, and they had media, social media influencers, celebrities in tandem. 4.3, 4.5. When you see how they've done it in the past, is this it? Here we go. Oh, who do they have now? They got Jerry DeKetville. Nope, I don't want to do that. Okay, I'd still like to see what I'm looking at here. Jerry DeKetville. No. Are you not going to let me see who? Whatever. Retired teacher, unionist, cook, traveler, wine snob, fiercely political and partisan. That's always a good combination. Opinionated. Nothing better than being fiercely partisan and opinionated. Grumpy at 6 a.m. before coffee. Flag. CPC is so out of touch. Who's this? Is this? Let's see who the artist is here. I can't seem to zoom in. Oh, there we go. There we go. Let's see who this is. HTX Herald 06 07 23. Oh, it's not even new, but they're recycling it now. Oh yes, you got stop the carbon tax as a Conservative Party of Canada policy over a water suppressant plane that is used to combat wildfires. Because if we had just paid more for the carbon in Canada, for the 1.5% that Canada emits globally, we wouldn't be having forest fires in Canada. Now, some people were suggesting that arson, forest fires, Canada. Let's see what PolitiFact has to say about this. Video shows Royal Mounted Canadian Police investigators determined that dozens of wildfires in Canada were caused by arson in 2023. Oh, let's go through this one, people. I'm not gonna come to any foregone conclusions. Maybe PolitiFact is going to be honest. Claims connecting arsonists to dozens of recent wildfires in Canada don't stand up under scrutiny. Oh, yes. The story cited as evidence of recent arson-caused wildfires includes structure fires that were quickly extinguished and old cases from previous years. Only 2 of the examples pertain to suspected arson cases this year. You hear what they did here? The stories cited as evidence of recent arson-caused wildfires include structure fires, arson, that were quickly extinguished. Oh, okay, so those don't count. Only 2 of the examples pertain to suspected arson this year. So it's not. They were wrong on the dozens. There's just a few, at least, that have been confirmed. Dozens of wildfires in Canada, yada, yada, yada. Oh, my goodness. Fact check. Okay, Hawaii is being attacked by direct energy weapons. Yeah, I don't think we have to agree to that. What it's being attacked by is corrupt criminals in government, in corporation. Can you imagine? I was just listening to Alex Jones with Tim Dillon. I think I love Tim Dillon. And they were talking about how the world has changed. I mean, and at the risk of, I don't want to have someone screen grabbing identical tweets that I post out, because I do remember having posted out at one point in time. The Democrats have gone from the anti-vaxxers, big government is bad, big pharma is bad, the war is bad. They literally went from this. And I know this because I've had hippies in my family once upon a time. They didn't trust big pharma back in the 70s. They didn't trust vaccines back in the 70s. They didn't trust big government back in the 70s. They didn't want to go to war back in the 70s. And now the Democrat liberal left in Canada and the US shut up and let government censor you more. Trust the big government, the one that, that was responsible for the residential school atrocities, the Tuskegee experiments where the government was experimenting on its own population. Trust big government, trust big pharma, and fight to the end in Ukraine. The same people, the same government that lied to you about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that resulted in 250,000 dead, innocent civilian Iraqis. The same government that lied to you about that came to you with their intel reports and said, we have evidence of weapons of mass destruction. Regime change is the only necessary thing. Killed 250,000 innocent Iraqi civilians. And that wasn't that long ago. I was 22 when that happened. Now this is the same Democrat liberal left saying, Putin, they're right on Putin. Let's go be responsible for another 250,000 deaths of innocent Ukrainians. Trust big pharma, trust big government, censorship, shut your mouth, take the drugs. Holy sweet, merciful crab apples. All right, I see Jessica Rose in the back, but I see no avatar, and it looks like she's on mute. Oh, okay, she's there. So speaking of government lying to you about everything, through and through, I don't know if Jessica and I we're going to get back into some more of what happened during COVID, but we're certainly going to get into Hawaii and Maui. Jessica, are you ready to come in? Thumbs up. Oh, okay, there we go. Everybody, Jessica Rose, and what we'll do is we'll start here for a few minutes and then we'll go over to Rumble because we have to we have to reward the free speech platforms. Okay, so hold on one second. What I'm going to do right now, Jessica, I'm going to bring you in 30 seconds. I'm going to share the link one more time. We'll start briefly here, whet the appetites with what's to come, and then move over to Rumble. 3, 2, 1. Jessica, how goes the battle?
Good.
All right, so, well, okay, so I don't, first of all, I saw the video of you surfing, and it's kind of amazing. No,
yeah, I'm rusty, but I still got some flow. I was just thinking today, like, I am so, like, in the mind and the body positioning right now to just go all the way with longboarding. I mean, like, I want to be on the WSL circuit. I'm not kidding about that. I want to train every day, twice a day at least, but I don't have the waves. So it's like I'm in a position now where I'm still able to train twice a day. I can still kick 16-year-old ass, I swear. But I need to put myself somewhere where I have the bigger and better and longer waves. So well, I can, like...
I'm going to go find that video. I'm scrolling through your feed right now just to get to the video because people were accusing you apparently of Photoshop because at first you posted just a picture and then CGI. How am I going to be able to get to this fast enough? So first of all,
so funny. It's like, okay, I'm flattered.
Well, and I don't know what the basis, if they thought it was the skill, if they thought it, because I think, look, I was flabbergasted when you did mention your age the last time, and I think I was flabbergasted because you look young and healthy. I'll get the video sooner than later. But do explain to us, when did you learn how to surf, and should I be getting into this?
Yes, you definitely should try. Like, not everyone's a surfer, but everyone should try, because if you're not aware of the fact that you might be a surfer and you don't try, you might lose out on the best thing in your whole life. I mean, there's nothing like surfing to me. Nothing. It's flamenco is like beating in my heart, but surfing is something else. It's happiness. It's joy. It's bigger than happiness. It's joy. It's union. It's everything. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I don't get tired when I paddle out. I just don't. I can go for 6 hours straight. I don't need to eat. I've talked about this before. It's like, I get this, like, whatever it is, the second wind, or you start eating your fat or whatever, getting the energy from your fat, but something happens and it's like, I have the energy stores to keep going. But I think it's here too. It's like, it's so fun.
Well, we're gonna play the video, because does it have audio?
Oh, okay. There I am.
So now, this is not all going to be about surfing. I was going to go buy a board. I was at Deerfield Beach, and we went into a shop to get suntan lotion, and they had boards, and they look accessible. It was maybe like a 7-foot board with 3 rudders in the end. And then I was like, I better do some research before getting anything, so I don't buy something stupid. What are the shorter boards versus the longer boards good for, and is one easier to use than the other?
Yeah, so it really depends what you want from your surfing experience, and that's a daily thing. The guy behind me is a friend of mine, and he's a shortboarder. Like, he only rides a shortboard, which is like, 5 foot something to, you probably wouldn't want to go more than 6 unless you're like a really big guy. So this is for like more maneuverability, bigger, faster waves. It's just a different thing from longboarding. What I do is longboarding, and I do classic style longboarding. So it's more like dancing on a plank. So a traditional longboard is 9 feet long. Mine's 9'3", that one that you saw. Handmade by Josh Constable in Noosa. And I actually picked it up from him, from Noosa, from him. It was like a really exciting experience. And so yeah, it depends what you want from the wave. There's mid-range boards too, which like are perfect for people who are starting out, who don't really know if they want to go big or small, because you can catch just about any wave you want on like a 7'2" or an 8-foot board. The fins are like, I do monofin. single fin, which is like more classic traditional longboarding style. 3 fins just gives you more like carvability, has to do with the hydrodynamics and stuff. If you don't shut me up, we're going to have a surf nerd talk for an hour.
I'm taking notes, and I think I might be driving back to Deerfield Beach this afternoon.
You have to try it, dude. Like, really. Do you do yoga?
Hell no. Do I do yoga?
Okay.
I probably should, but no. I
No,
do
you
nothing
don't
that's
have
good.
to, but
Oh no, I was going to
I'm
say
like you.
I do nothing that's good for inner peace. I try to meditate, and then I get irritated that my hair is tickling my face. I can feel they say like focus on your breathing. I was like, I'm getting irritated. I can hear my heartbeat. I don't need to meditate to do that. I need to meditate to not do that.
Well, I'm like you. I just like, yeah, it's there's too much going on. But that's another reason you should try surfing, because in spite of you, it quiets all that shit going on in your head. So
well, I did
it's
notice
really good for that.
like just when I go into the ocean with goggles and just stare at the bottom and look for like crabs. I mean, that is relaxing. I feel sort of that's a moment where you're not just running doom and gloom in your head incessantly all day long. Okay, so I might do this. All right, but now, all that to say, first of all, for those who don't know who you are, Jessica, they can go back and watch our previous interview. It's not going to be the subject of today's discussion, but who are you? How has COVID been to you? How was testifying during the National Citizens Inquiry? And what are you doing now? Before we get to the discussion of Maui and Hawaii.
Right. Well, I'm a Canadian researcher. I started my academic career, I suppose, which is basically all I've ever done besides surfing, in applied mathematics. I applied the mathematics to immunology, got an MSc in immunology and medicine, and it was in that program where I met my PhD advisor, who was a computational biologist doing HIV research. So I was brought to Israel to do a PhD in computational biology. And then I flowed into a postdoc in molecular biology. And then I flowed into another postdoc in biochemistry. So that led me up to 2019 December, which, as everybody knows, is just on the cusp of the pandemic declaration. I had just finished my second postdoc, and I had planned to showcase my longboarding talent at the WSL event that was happening in Noosa in Australia. And my plans got deferred because of the pandemic. And so, the eternal optimist, well, actually, it was really upsetting. So I had to get my attention on something else. So I decided to focus on some data analysis. So because of what was happening and because of the apparency of the fraudulenceness of a zoonotic pathogen being on the loose and killing millions of people, and the trajectory that we were going with this mono solution of injections of experimental products, I was like, all right, I got to start looking into pharmacovigilance databases. I've never done any of this before. It's just, with all the things that I have in my background, it kind of made me a good person to do this exploration, because I have a lot of data analytics under my belt. So yeah, that's who I am. And COVID affected me in an ironically good way, because like I just said, it's like the all of the degrees that I've done give me this really supernaturally, wildly suitable background to look at all aspects of what we've been put through in the last 3 years. And I'm a skeptic by nature, and I don't trust government by nature. So who better to?
And it's if there's time, we'll talk about the COVID stuff afterwards. You testified during the National Citizens Inquiry, which is the Citizens Initiative investigation into the government's response to COVID. Your testimony, your analysis, your insight. It's like, people say, well, you don't have a PhD. And it's like, no, you have a PhD in a tool that allows you to understand things. And it's something about having a brain, knowing how to use the tools that you're given to apply them to situations where those who have the expertise have been lying to us from day one. So maybe we'll get back into that afterwards. But for now, We're going to talk about Hawaii because we share a mutual connection who said you got to talk to Jessica Rose about what's going on in Hawaii. I don't know what your connection to Hawaii is, but we're going to get into that on Rumble, people. We've been 50 minutes on YouTube. That's more time than they deserve. Jessica, changes nothing on our end, but there are 1,175 people here. Migrate over to Rumble if you are so inclined. If you're not so inclined, here, I'll give you the link to Locals. You can go there and we can have our after party afterwards. So I'm going to end it on YouTube and we're going to get into the discussion about Maui, Hawaii, and see where else it goes. Rumble.